Thank you, Clerk Moss, and welcome everyone to the Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025 Board of County Commissioners work session. We have a full complement of commissioners, Commissioner Jerry Willey, Vice Chair Commissioner Pam Trees, Commissioner Nafisa Fye, and Commissioner Jason Snyder, and this is Chair Catherine Harrington. We have a very full agenda for today. Thank you for starting the meeting at 1 o'clock. So I'm going to turn it over to our team to present the applicants for the Behavioral Health Council. Please take it away.
Thank you so much, Chair Harrington. Good afternoon, Chair Harrington, Board of County Commissioners. For the record, my name is Mira Samantel. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Director of Health and Human Services. With me today, I have Nick O'Cone, who's our Behavioral Health Division Manager. He will present the recommendations for the applicants for an action item that we would be moving forward on May 6th. There's been a slight adjustment since the PowerPoint was shared with you, breaking news as of just a short time ago. And Nick will go through that with you as he presents his recommendations today.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Harrington, Commissioners. As Mira mentioned, my name is Nick O'Cone, and I'm the Division Manager at Behavioral Health. And today I'm going to be walking through our Behavioral Health Council applicants. Yes, and as Mira mentioned, this is an exercise in being nimble and working on the fly, because sometimes you get emails 10 minutes before you're about to give a presentation and you have to change course. So here we go. You got me, or I got this? All right. So for today's presentation, we're just going to give a really high-level overview of the Behavioral Health Council, talk a little bit about our 2025 recruitment, and to provide some recommendations to the board for appointments on May 6th, as Mira mentioned. So a little background on the Behavioral Health Council. It is a 15-member council that advises our division and provides direction to the board on behavioral health needs and priorities in our community. We actually went through a bylaws update last year and contracted our membership from 19 voting members to 15. And we now have 4 additional alternate seats. That is up to the discretion as to whether or not the council will be making recommendations there. Several of the positions are dedicated to specific areas or groups, and our priorities are always to really center consumer and lived experience and the conversations that we're having and the voices that are at the table about decision making and behavioral health priorities in our community. We also are really always looking for broad representation and looking for ways to diversify our council as much as possible, just to have the most comprehensive conversations about what the needs are and just to tell us what we don't know. All right. So for our 2025 recruitment, we had 3 open positions. Each of these positions were dedicated to specific areas in the system, and we received a total of 8 applicants to fill these positions. Unfortunately, prior to us voting on the recommendations that we're bringing today, 2 of our applicants withdrew formally in writing. And there were 4 others that didn't respond to questions that staff had about clarifications in their applications, and they didn't come to the meeting that we had on March 26th, where we asked all of our applicants to provide a statement of why they were interested in the board and to be able to ask questions from board members. So we were really only looking at deliberating and potentially recommending a couple of those members. The recommendations that I was going to be prepared to come to you all was to recommend Maya Keller as a consumer of behavioral health services applicant. Unfortunately, I was notified 10 minutes prior to this meeting that her employer thinks it would be a conflict of interest to be sitting on the council, and she is formally withdrawing her application. My hope is that she continues to attend as a visitor, as we have open doors to the community and have a number of members that have been, or excuse me, guests and community members who have been attending for multiple years before they ever apply. But unfortunately, she's not able to move forward with the recommendation that we are making today. We didn't receive any applicants that met our prevention or K-12 representative positions, and we followed up with a couple of the applicants to ask additional information. And as I mentioned previously, we didn't hear anything back, and the council did not feel comfortable voting and putting a member forward if they didn't receive that response. We are going to be recommending 1 alternate position, which is actually the first time we've ever done this. So this is really exciting. And the hope is to to appoint Larissa Thomas in an alternate position. Larissa Thomas is a current member of the Behavioral Health Council who's been appointed since 2019 and has served 2 terms on the council. She's a Washington County resident who lives in District 1, and in previous application material, she's identified as female and Caucasian when applying for the council. The council didn't want to put the other applicants forward even as alternates just because they didn't know enough about them and they didn't show up to the meeting or respond to the questions about their applicants.
One of them is going to be appointed later today to the commission, to the salary commission.
There you go. Maybe that's why they didn't respond to our questions.
Maybe that's it.
So with that, our recommendation is to not appoint anybody to the 3 identified voting positions that are vacant, to appoint one of the alternates and to move forward into the next year with 12 over 15 voting positions filled.
On Ms. Thomas, I assume it's Ms.
Okay.
Thomas. So was she an alternate? Is she currently an alternate, or she was in a different position and being recommended for an alternate?
She's currently in a member at large or community advocate position, and we're recommending her, or the council, excuse me, is recommending her to go into an alternate. We carried her into a community at large position after we contracted our membership and are slowly moving folks into other positions where appropriate.
Got it.
And I know this is probably not the right place for this, but it seems like I assume you're doing outreach to community organizations on the consumer part of this. And is the K-12 supposed to be a K-12 child or an adult that works in K-12?
It's somebody who works in the K-12 system.
Okay. I mean, I assume you guys are working those connections too to try to hard.
We absolutely are, and
Okay.
one of the positions that withdrew actually fit that criteria. And there's been 2 different K-12 representatives that we've had that needed to actually resign midterm just because of the additional demands in the school district that they weren't able to make the meeting times. And so we are making a real push in that area, and unfortunately, just have not been successful.
Okay.
Council does have hybrid meetings.
We do, yes. We meet in person, but there's always a hybrid option, and a number of our members take us up on that.
Other questions? And this will come to us on May 6th?
Yes.
Okay. Terrific. And so the remaining positions will remain open until you come back to us for subsequent appointments.
They'll be open until Phil and I will update the matrix that I had attached in advance of the May 6th meeting, just to update that one of the members, one of the applicants needed to be removed.
Terrific.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Keep up the good work. I know you've got a lot going on.
Thank you.
Burn, deflection, cat.
There's no lack of work.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to Salary Commission appointment recommendations.
Hi.
Hello,
How are
Anne.
you?
Fine.
Thank you all. But most importantly, thank you to FISA. So I just wanted to give a little bit of background about where we are today with the Salary Commission before we start. So this year, this has been surprisingly harder to find people than we expected. So we opened this up and have done extra outreach in order to try and fill the board. That work has been done largely by FISA, and I just want to give her credit for the extra time and effort she has put into trying to find people who understand salaries and understand the work of this committee. So first and foremost, thank you to FISA. The second piece of this is typically we would want to have all HR professionals in order, and that's the requirement of the charter, is that we bring in HR professionals. We have instead brought in people who have management experience and have done hiring and firing and have worked with salaries in order to make sure that we have a well-rounded group, and because we were really struggling to find the actual professional piece of this. You'll also notice as I go through this list that one of the individuals is a former employee. The charter or the the ordinance talks about how the position needs to be filled with individuals who are not current appointees or elected officials and not employees. This person actually is retired from the county. So if you do have concerns about that, we can talk through that as well. There is one additional party that we're not recommending for appointment today. So there is a plan if you decide that that is of concern. With that, I'm going to just walk through really briefly the individuals who we are putting forward today. And then if you have questions at the end, we can answer them. Okay, so the first one is San Pablo Garcia. He's the executive director at Latinx Recovery Center, has a lot of experience working with hiring, firing, managing employees. And I just really, all of these, I should say, I really appreciate people putting their names forward. Madiha Amjid is got an accounting and financial background. Part of this is actually also figuring out how we manage this within our budgets and how decisions are made about pay and salary. Faisal Azim is with Intel and does have a background, again, working with large budgets and with management of employees.
Currently with NVIDIA.
Oh,
Was at
that's right.
Intel for 24 years.
Again, these are all people that I will admit Faisa knows personally. So if you have questions about them, she can give you some additional background. Masood Rashid is still at Intel. Okay. And has been, again, leading teams and doing hiring processes within those teams. Abe Turkey was the person who was here. So a lot of people in our LUT team do know this individual, and he comes highly recommended.
They didn't have, I mean, just to be clear, they didn't have like regular direct work with a commission or anything that you would think would create some sort of a bias of some sort from historical work.
We do not have any concerns.
For context, they were a project manager and working on transportation capital projects.
Okay.
And they are not currently working back from retirement.
And the last one is Ibrahim Abdi, and they are a case manager with the Department of Human Services. So again, working with government agencies, doing hiring and management.
The Oregon Department.
Correct. Correct. Are there questions that I can answer?
The last one?
The last one is Steve, and actually the way we made our recommendation to you all is just based on whether or not they were county residents. So Steve is the only person who is not a Washington County resident. And since we had 6 individuals who were county residents, we went with those individuals.
That was really the only.
That was the only reason. Yeah.
So my questions aren't so much with the salary commission, though I'm wondering, as they have stepped forward, what sort of program have you illustrated for them so that they don't find themselves in a time crunch? Or, for example, setting meetings up for them in the evenings versus during the day, what have you? Could you?
Sure. So these will be evening meetings, but I'm going to let Faiza answer this because she's been working on it, and then I'll add.
Okay. So before we even recruited the salary commission, we already contracted with a facilitator who will be laying out the program for these people and meeting cadence and managing the meetings and providing them the materials and directing their research for the market. And also if people have said that they are mostly working employees, so they can only meet in the evenings. So we will be setting up meetings with collaboration with Clerk Moss in the evenings for these people. But the facilitator is just waiting for us to appoint the commission to get their work started.
And that will include, the consultant will be doing interviews with each of the 5 commissioners just to learn more about your positions, to understand what you do. They'll also be meeting with HR and with Tanya to make sure that everybody understands how the form of government works and what your roles are. And then HR is doing the market analysis. So we've started that process just to make sure that that is available to the consultant when they begin. We expect that this is going to take at least a couple of meetings, but we are starting to run into the timelines associated with the budget. So we're trying to make sure that we can get this in before the June 17th.
And is this the same facilitator that we used previously?
Okay.
It is not. We ended up doing we received 3 bids. The person who has done it, one of the individuals that we contacted, did not have insurance any longer. And that is a requirement of doing service here at the county. So we, FISA did interviews and talked to individuals, and this was the best qualified candidate.
And so we'll be interviewed?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate hearing that. I read the minutes, the summary minutes from the 2 prior cycles. And so I have that in my learnings to move forward. So,
And we have provided those to the facilitator to orient them since they're new. So they will be modeling the work based on the past 2 commissions.
We'll just say I'm not very, but I would say mildly, maybe concerned's not the right word, but the idea that we don't have a single HR professional in the group is of mild note, I would say, for me, and perhaps a little bit of a concern, but I think you all have done everything you can, and I don't know that there's really anything different to do. I know I even gave Anne the name of someone who apparently didn't engage, who would have been more in that space, but it is what it is.
Well, and I can only speak from my experience. I did run a similar process at the city of Milwaukee in which we had conversations with community groups. It means that our HR team and the consultants around that have to do more work in order to educate and to bring people along. But I think this is a highly educated group of individuals with an understanding that there are costs associated with salaries and that there are impacts to people's lives. So I don't disagree with you at all. And
You don't what?
disagree
Disagree.
with you
Okay.
at all. And it's been a learning for me as well. And we can have a discussion about future years.
For a bit of context on where we've been, so this is our 3rd seating of the Salary Commission. It's been yeoman's work, I will call, to seat a salary commission each time. We were fortunate the first time to actually have more HR professionals than you see at this point in time. And that I would say that was luck of the draw of those that were willing to use the experience as their continuing education credits for SHRM, which is the Society of HR Professionals. Then the following year, we had individuals change positions or move or say they couldn't do it due to time commitment. And we saw the last time the Salary Commission was seated, less HR professionals. The recruitment that FISA did, I would also say, is in yeoman's work as well. In addition to that, there were also and I and others reaching out to both city managers, other managers, trying to get
There's a lot of effort.
There was a lot of effort. So I think after this, we may want to kind of debrief, how could we try something differently next time and also recognize the challenges. The other piece I want to just lift up is per the charter, this is an independent salary commission. So we as staff do not influence what the commission's comments or what their final findings are. And so we take that very seriously from a kind of staff perspective. And so if you are asking me questions or FISA questions, we may say you need to actually address those formally to the Salary Commission. And we will work with County Council to make sure that we are staying true to the language that's outlined within the charter.
They just make recommendations.
It's a recommendation to the board.
Yeah. Because we did that, I think, a couple of years ago. We opted not to take that.
Some people have chosen not to take them in the past. Some people have. You've had commissioners choose to take 50% of their salary. Like all of this has been different. You have some flexibility.
Well, I think for clarity's sake, the person that took 50% was elected under a charter that allowed for 50%, which is different than just opting in. So I just want that for clarity now.
and then the thing that was opted out of previously was COLA for 1 year.
And that was not part of the salary commission's findings. That was actually done in an off cycle as part of budget. And board members, individual board members, individually determined to do that as department directors, county administration, executive staff had chosen not to do that.
What year was that? So I have a context.
Last year.
Yeah.
No, 2 years
No.
ago. It was
2 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 of us
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah.
Commissioner Trees. Oh, really?
Mhm.
I think Roy. And Roy, yeah.
I thought it was last year.
No, he stuck with his full 50%.
We have this on the agenda for later today for approval, and I just wanted to call that out. Normally, we wouldn't do that, but we are trying to seat the commission quickly so that we can get through to the deadline.
And that is under boards and commissions on the agenda.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Both.
Thank you, Liza. All righty. Next, we'll move on to the quarterly management report.
Well, good afternoon, Board of Commissioners, and welcome to another quarter. They each go fast. So one item I want to raise, an item, and I apologize for the clerical error that was not included in your packet at the time of publishing, was the actual dashboard. The dashboard is referenced within the quarterly management report. So Clerk Moss is adding that to your packet. So I just want to reference that. I will not be spending time walking through the dashboard, but happy to have any follow-up conversations in future board discussion and or our So as a reminder, the quarterly report does include several sections within the quarterly report, including an opening and also closing comments from myself. The dashboard that was not in your packet, that will be included in your packet. You have seen this before, so I'm just including it within today's presentation for your information. This is the status bar of how we track initiatives that we're reporting through the dashboard. And this is just the definitions of what each of those colors mean. And then also highlighting the areas of the dashboard. Once again, not going over this because the board did not have time to actually review the dashboard itself. So we
in the report, as you said.
Yes, yeah. Well, not the actual detail, Commissioner Fye, of individual initiatives. So you'll be seeing what's updated in the packet is another PDF that highlights specific initiatives and talks specifically about what's on off track to what's discontinued, and also, yay, we've completed some things. So I do want to spend time talking about cross-functional goals. So what is underway is the county has undergone a communications assessment. We have put the work on our communications assessment on pause because we have been busy and deep into budget. And so the communications assessment offered the board opportunity to provide input and interviewed not only just department directors, but communication staff across our entire county. You will be getting an update of that communications assessment at some point this summer. Employee and community engagement. Our staff continue to work on employee and community engagement efforts. In your ARPA funding allocations, we do have dollars for set aside for the county's first countywide employee engagement survey. One would say, hey, at this point in time, this is going to be a hard time to actually gauge employee engagement because we are going through our 5th year of budget cuts. So that doesn't mean you shy away from that information. This is their time to lean in on culture and employee engagement and well-being. We will also be working through a community engagement, community survey. That more information will be coming to your board. And you're going to hear me say a lot today post budget because we are right now, that is our focus. Professional learning and development plan. This is not reported on at this point in time. More information will be upcoming. Recently, just had a very exciting conversation with Brianna Jackson, who's our learning and development manager within HR. We will be working on the framework for the county's first supervisory training modules, as well as a county-wide learning development type academy session. We're determining how to do this best because we have 24/7 operations, we have diverse business lines, and also within our departments, we have departments that have required department-based training. So it, due to the large scale and also, once again, those business lines, we want to make sure that this is accessible and also achievable for employees. Procurement, we have discontinued. And when I say discontinued, I want to kind of say pause that, not right now, changes within our procurement policies and efforts. Part of this is just the workload that we have occurring within our finance department as we focus on Workday and the implementation of Workday. And procurement does not just occur within central finance, it actually occurs through the entire county. So this is actually a significant lift. So discontinue, I'm going to call it not right now. Now I will touch on the 4 focus area initiatives that are included within your report. So first is the under Health and Human Services, primary area of government is an update on our Nurse Navigator program. Your board recently heard an update on this program and really excitement that we are at the point of launching this program. As a reminder, I do want to just highlight for community members that may be listening and did not have the opportunity to hear that presentation, there are really key benefits to launching this program. Fire and EMS responders are more readily available for emergencies. This reduces the number of non-urgent calls, helps from first responders focusing on high priority emergencies. As a result, hospital emergency departments can reduce wait times due to overcrowding. Ideally, we will see lower healthcare costs. The program is expected to save both patients and the health system significant costs by diverging non-urgent cases to more appropriate cost-effective care options. And actually enhance patient experience, which is really what we want to see as well. Callers receiving immediate professional guidance, reducing anxiety, and empowering them to make informed decisions about their own health.
If I could, I'm shying away from using the expression reduce healthcare costs to reduce growth of healthcare costs, because there's so many things outside of our control, you know, the advancement of medical equipment, all kinds of things. So I think the best we can do is to help reduce the increased costs.
Thank you for that feedback, and staff will take that. And actually, I appreciate it because it feels like you're parroting back to me budget messaging that I given here before. So thank you for that.
We don't have a proposed budget yet, Ms. Angie.
Well, we've been from you,
Yeah.
and I know I've said that. Patient continuity of care. Patients are connected to the local healthcare system, including clinics, providers, helping improve continuity of care they receive. So we are in the first 45 days. WACA and the EMS team and Nurse Navigation are actively working through expected challenges. This is really a complex new program that we're launching, and they're making operational alterations as they need. moving forward. I think this is another example of just how we live into One Washington County. And just because you launch a program does not mean it's going to be perfect, because number one, we're humans that are operating and we're serving humans. And so that continued conversation and iteration is incredibly important as we move forward. Public safety, I want to report on community corrections, which is actually a shared update with our facility, fleet, and parks department. So really exciting progress on the community corrections capital project. For context and a reminder, your board in this current fiscal year had reinstituted funding to operate community corrections at its full operational level. Community corrections has not been in full operations mode since 2019. As we have embarked on the facilities, critical facilities capital program and just aging facilities, there were significant needs within the bathrooms and showers to actually make the facility functional for the full occupancy. Facilities and the contractor have completed the final inspections and plans for phase 1, which covers dorms 3 and 7, are anticipated completion in time frame of 4 to 6 weeks. So this helps get us into operating mode. And within your report, and I won't go through the detail, it does also lay out the additional phases and completion dates. There are some things that I want to kind of highlight, like what does this mean to the people that we serve? So barring any unforeseen promotions or attrition, we anticipate being operationally staffed within the next couple months. This will enable us to enhance floor staffing and expand programming initiatives within the building. Our commitment to comprehensive support is evident in the robust weekly program schedule disseminated to all our community corrections staff. This calendar includes a range of vital resources such as Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and dual diagnosis meetings, job skills, readiness groups, life skills development, and access to HIV and STI testing, alongside ongoing staff training schedules. We are, as a county, particularly excited to announce the upcoming provision of both men and women's anger management groups to help support adults under supervision. This is an evidence-based program which addresses a significant gap in community resources, and we believe this to be a valuable asset in supporting positive changes. So I just want to compliment the board's continued leadership in support of our Community Corrections Center. The county does not need to operate a community corrections center. I want to be clear about that. And we are one of only a few counties that actually opt to do this. And the why is because it's proven to reduce recidivism. So if we look at our full continuum of public safety and justice services, what we want to do is give the hand up so that we don't have adults re-entering the system and re-entering and touching with our sheriff's office or our jail. So the implementation of these programs, well, I started with the bathrooms, but for the bathrooms, then we couldn't have actually completed the implementation of these programs, but it's really the programs that are going to make the difference in people's lives.
Thank you for bringing all that to life for us, because when we had talked last budget cycle about with the additional funding from the state being able to return the Community Corrections Center back to full operation status, I had forgotten about the whole suite of services and the delivery of those services through other partner organizations as well. So that was really beneficial to me. Thank you. Behavior change involves a lot of human characteristics. So hats off to the Community Corrections Department.
Now we're going to actually go down the road to LUT, no pun intended. Sorry.
Thank you.
That was kind of cheesy, but I had to look at my LUT friends over there. So the transportation landscape in Washington County continues to see positive transformation. The previous fall marked successful completion of 2 key initiatives, improvement on Roy Rogers Road and crucial and a crucial upgrade to the intersection of Highway 99, Roy Rogers to Tualatin Sherwood Road. These projects have already been delivering tangible benefits, including easing of congestion and delays that once plagued these vital arteries. I really enjoy lifting some of these up because your board talks many times the front end, whether it's plans or funding. We don't always take the time to celebrate the completion and seeing what benefit our transportation system actually delivers to our community. I want to build on this momentum, and progress continues on a third significant undertaking, the widening of Tualatin Sherwood Road to 5 lanes between Sherwood and Tualatin. This expansion, anticipated to conclude later this year, promises to further enhance traffic flow and capacity within our region. A noteworthy aspect of all three, Tualatin, Sherwood, and Roy Rogers Roads projects was a collaborative partnership with the Willamette Water Supply Program. By integrating the construction of a pipeline into these road improvements, both agencies achieve significant cost savings and minimize the overall disruption to commuters and nearby residents by consolidating the major construction work. We do want to recognize that we know this has also been impactful to the community, and there's also concerns about what is the pavement conditions with the pipeline work after the full completion of this work. Adding to the positive developments, the Farmington Road River Road roundabout has reached substantial completion. On a personal note, this is my ride to work, and I'm so excited because it has changed my commute time dramatically on a personal level, but that is not why we implement public projects. This new traffic management solution has effectively eliminated the long queues and daily delays that were characteristic of this intersection's all-way stop. Furthermore, the Timber Road landside repair is on schedule and completion in May. This will mark a long-awaited reopening of the road, which has now been closed for 2 years following the landslide. So looking ahead, several other important transportation projects are currently underway. This includes Phase 2, widening of Walker Road, improvements to Thompson Road, and enhancements to Cornell and 25th Avenue intersection within Hillsborough itself. I want to underscore our work of LUT in this, but we do not do this work in a vacuum. There is such an integrated partnership with other local governments, contractors, et cetera, to actually deliver on these projects. We are now going to move into another primary area of government and focus on finance. As your board is aware, many competing pressures have been further challenging our general fund. This has led to our 5th year of reductions in our general fund, impacting programs and services. While we're challenged by the long constraint revenue framework within much of the organization, we know that we need to continue delivering basic and mandated services to our community. I'm not going to touch more significantly on this because you're going to be hearing quite a bit about this on April 28th and also through your budget committee meetings, ultimately culminating with your board's formal adoption of the board. In March of 2024, staff did engage with Marina and Company to perform various assessments and create an advisory report focused on potential alternative funding and funding options and scenarios. Your board, as part of your goals for me this year, had added to that, looking at different revenue options. So we look forward to having this first of what I assume many conversations as we determine how do we sustainably deliver services that enhance the livability to our Washington County community. So as a reminder, we are a learning organization, and we are continuing to learn through the development of these quarterly updates that are in alignment with your board adopted strategic plan and associated board goals. So I did touch on this in the last report, but I just want to kind of lift this up. What we learned in the development of the dashboard is I just want to say first and foremost, staff want to do work plans. They want to report on work because we are doing great work, but we're stretched thin. And so it is the staff capacity to be reporting on the work and also delivering work on a day-to-day basis with differing priorities coming up or surprises sometimes of the day. So we met with our county leadership team to really have focus on what are the cross-functional organizational goals that we are going to be reporting on moving forward. And so that is not to say that department goals aren't worked on. This is to say how we are reporting on them to reduce some of the workload for departments. So the votes are just votes from department directors who were able to attend the meeting. Of no surprise, directors also want to see a priority on stabilizing the budget and strengthening financial systems. There was also high votes for improving public safety and justice services. There was also a recognition that even though that says public safety and justice services, that's not just limited to public safety and justice departments. There is complete crossover to that livability access with all of Washington County departments. And that was something that really came up for directors of wanting to ensure that all of our services are seen as we think about we are a system of service, and our services and the work that employees do matter. In addition, recruit and retain excellent employees. This connects to our HR transformation work. Also, hiring can be challenging. Onboarding can be challenging. So retaining employees is incredibly valuable and important. Optimize, automate, and streamline business HR ops. The only reason this is below the line is because we wanted to try to limit to 3. And the feedback was, we know that HR is continuing to do that and we will be on the journey, but did not feel the need that needed to be reported in the way that the other top 3 needed to be reported on. Increase access and belonging, close disparities for underserved communities. The feedback was that should not be a standalone, that it should be really woven into the how we are delivering work, no matter what we're reporting on. So for example, and I'll use public safety and justice, that should be included in the how we deliver public safety and justice services, not as a standalone. It should be the how we think about our financial, how we stabilize our budget and strengthen our financial systems. So just a personal commentary on that. I also think department directors were struggling with trying to choose 3. So it's also how do we tuck in some other things versus not saying we're not. So development of 3 to 5 year goals. The top 3 that I outlined are really 3 to 5 year goals. One of the learnings that we had is it is really challenging for large goals to contain us to a 1-year horizon because many of the transformational initiatives cross over multiple years. So we are looking at these as 3 to 5 year goals. So here, and I walked through the top 3, these are what we will be reporting on from the organizational priorities that we will have staff teams that are connected to these 3 priorities. And this will be integrated moving forward into your July reports. Your July, which will look similar to this current report because we're reporting on this past year, and then October will look different because we're reporting on those three major goals. You will still have focus areas such as I talked more, for example, the community corrections focus area. It will just be what is included on a dashboard. And then this slide lays out when the next reporting dates are for the quarterly management briefs. Any questions?
These priorities coordinate with our consultants that we hired last month as to would they communicated these priorities as ours, so that's what their focus is.
Mhm.
Okay.
Correct. And these priorities connect to existing work that we are already doing. These are not, this is not.
Mhm.
So Washington County stabilize our budget and strengthen financial systems. That has already been an identified goal. We're working with Marina and Company. Need to have more direction from your board. Exactly what does that mean? This is connected to your existing legislative agenda. It's connected to the work our departments have been doing through this budget process. Washington County improve public safety and justice services to protect our community and strengthen public trust. This connects to the work of the white paper. It connects to the work that is underway through the public safety levy, also the legislative agenda, recruit and retain excellent employees. This is a continuing initiative. Did that help clarify, Commissioner Lilly?
Make sure we're tracking.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I guess I want to understand how much time and effort the leadership team and you are having to put into this being reported quarterly, and how much of a potential barrier that is to getting other things done. I mean, this seems like it's probably, I'm guessing it's a significant lift and it's being reported quarterly. Should we be reevaluating that perhaps?
So number one, well, the leadership team would like, I'm going to say a future state and where we are right now. A future state that we would have a strategic plan with goals. Departments would be reporting on the clearly all up, reporting through the Envisio dashboard. We just don't have the capacity to do that. We have also seen the transition of some of our ARPA colleagues who were helping be the bridge and the capacity to do this work. Department directors, the county leadership team does want to continue to be reporting on the work and also sees value in countywide goals while we still are challenged by our capacity. So these are three goals that we can clearly align internal, so from a staff level, cross-departmental teams, and also report on these goals. It aligns to board initiatives. Does it reflect all of the work that's occurring at the county? Absolutely not. There is significant more work that is occurring. So to your question, the reduction in the reporting, this helps get there. Moving to a twice a year reporting, of course, that would be helpful because that reduces the amount of timing that we would be reporting on. What I would ask is that we land on a format and what timing, if that is less than, if it's quarterly, if it's 3 times, if it's 2 years, because for us to build it into the cadence of work is incredibly important because I get concerned about this changing every quarter and that impact on staff. And I want to make sure it's meaningful to the board, what you're looking for and what is helpful to community too.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I was looking at exactly the same thing. Because we're all up to our ears in budgets and everything else right now, and your next report is July, and I'd really like us to consider doing semi-annual. We push the July to September, and then I don't know, you can choose when you want to, if we recommended it twice a year, but this is a great report, but it's also obvious that there's a lot of time put into this from both you and your staff. So I'd like to try and minimize that, especially when we have plenty of other things to do. And yeah, we're reducing staffing rather than increasing staffing. So yeah, I think we need to prioritize where we want to put our staff time in. this is certainly one, but not 4 times a year.
I would like to suggest something similar but quite different. Let's not make decisions today. This is the first year of implementing this at all, ever. So this is only the third quarter. So rather than throw the baby out with the bathwater, I think we should put this on our roundtable agenda for August, and commissioners come to the party and say, how have you been using this report? One use is I've just been showing up to the work sessions, listening to the presentations, reading those part or all of the document that interests me, but that's about it. We also, so we each have to ask and answer the question, how have we been using this compared to how did we want or intend to use it? And then thirdly, have to be honest with ourselves about we didn't used to have anything like this. Part of the reason why we requested this is because at any point in time, we're just getting hit with here's a proposal, here's a status update, here, here. And we have no centralized way of keeping track of that. So this was at an attempt at some level of centralized communication, different instances. So sure, we can polish this particular one by making changes here and there, but I think we need to also step back and look at what the purpose was, what have we learned through this intent, and how do we want to make sure we set a different course. You know, there's a variety of options. Pull the whole plug, do something completely different, or everything in between. But we need to do so thoughtfully and think of ahead of what have we learned, what has the use been like, and how do we want to port a chart course out into the future. And I think we all have some work to do towards that end.
I would appreciate, if we're having that discussion in August, I'd appreciate the staff leadership perspective on, I mean, I know that's not how we use the report, but the thoughts and recommendations you may have too, in addition to all of our perspectives.
Yeah, I would agree. I guess my initial focus when I was reading this was, we're going to ask you to do this report again in July. And we're just coming out of a pretty hefty budget season. And I'm just saying let's make sure there are some other things I would prefer you to be working on than this. And if we push this to September, that would give you some space to do that. That was the reason I was having this conversation.
Okay, board, what would you like to do?
I can weigh in. Tanya, great presentation, great report. I actually appreciated reading about the nurse navigation program, and you're right, like a lot of stuff is presented to us and then staff go forth and implement. But this was a really nice way to know what's happening with that program, and it was a nice reminder for myself to be, oh yes, we did learn about this and we did give the thumbs up to move forward and implement. So I'm not, um, I don't want to throw the baby with the bathwater. So I'm happy to support to come back to this conversation in a roundtable and have more thoughtful conversation and answer the 3 questions among ourselves that the chair laid out. The Now that we're coming back to this one request, and I heard you say this too in your presentation, about the vote numbers and the priorities, that the last priority was around closing disparities for underserved communities. And then the which the comments were, should be woven into all priorities as the way we do our work. Very important, but financial health and employee health are most urgent. Ambiguous language could emerge with recruitment and retention. So with the slide up right now that it's displayed, when you do come back, I hope you come back with language that weaves into those comments, that Washington County will stabilize our budget and strengthen our financial system in a way that closes disparities for underserved communities. So something like that, that really weaves in that we're intentional in how we close disparities by putting forth in any of our priorities. So that way it's not out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, we can do that. And some of the language and we're in the process of evolving our language right now. And you'll see coming up through the proposed budget, really being clear in what we're saying. So what we're saying is access and opportunity. And so you'll see more of that language, and that's really closing disparities too, is ensuring that we have access and opportunity to county services and yes, to the data. But I want to affirm what I'm hearing is that is included within these three. It's the how we do our work. And that's also the guidance your board has given. The how we do our work is embedded within the strategic plan update.
Last call for comments.
I was going to take you, Mike. I think for me, what I do like about this report is it is the dashboard effect, the fact that it tells me what's on track, what's off track, and why. And that's something that I look at. It also, frankly, reins me in a bit in relationship to what some of the asks I might be thinking about are when I look at the magnitude of what's moving forward here. I equally have concerns about timing and all that, but I think we can address that in August.
Well, as long as she doesn't have to do the report in July, I'm okay.
Yes, why wouldn't we want to have the Q4 response and have a full complete year?
Do that in September.
I don't understand. The Q4 report is due in July. Yep.
Is that the most important thing that they could be working on? That's my point.
I'm not sure how you assess what is important and what is not, or what they are doing.
Passing the budget at the end of June would be one.
Which we know that's going to happen.
You're right.
And that's one of the Q4 deliverables.
County Administrator, are you comfortable with the reevaluation from a staff demand, time demand? Are you comfortable with the proposal to reevaluate in August and complete the last quarter in July?
I'm comfortable completing the last quarter in July. I want to connect conversations and what I heard. What is proposed moving forward is the dashboard will not look like it has looked before. We will only be reporting on those three. So I want to that's where the August conversation is. What is the board looking for in this, and aligning that to staff resource is incredibly important, because Commissioner Treese, the dashboard that you see today will not look like it will post July. It will only be these three that we're reporting on. So I need clarity from the board as far as board expectation in August.
I think we should just pull the plug on the whole thing and just say, got nothing out of it.
That's the baby and bathwater approach.
Exactly. So we've heard multiple approaches here. We've heard on 2 slides, next steps. The staff decided after doing it through 2 quarters that they were going to change the 3rd quarter setup. That's been presented to us. And what I'm saying is, wait a second, and then another proposal was just skip the July 1 altogether. And it's like, really?
So we're going to push it to September, not skipping it.
I think what you proposed evolved. Somehow we went from July to September.
Different reporting period, same report.
And how is that going to help inform us into the next budget year? I don't think anybody stood back to look at that. It was just an on the fly, let's change this to a different part of the year. And I don't think it's been looked at thoughtfully. So I can just as unthoughtfully say, well, the heck with this. It's nobody's looked at the purpose of why the board asked for this.
I heard we were going to pause this to August. Tanya said she's willing to do the July, and we'll have the conversation in August. That's what I thought I heard.
Which would mean the completion of the year
Correct.
of quarterly reports,
Correct.
and then the adjustment moving forward after that.
If that's what we choose.
So you do the report in July, we have a board level discussion in August, and then we give direction.
Mhm.
So, thumbs up on.
Supportive of that plan.
Yeah, okay.
And acknowledging your comment about no matter what, it will look different because of the change.
I said
I-
yes.
Oh,
Or early on.
I heard a head.
I was
saw
saying
a
yes
head-
early on
Okay,
when I
okay, we'll do that. And we'll figure out what the date is for the August roundtable. Thank you. Okay. Anything else or to complete this
no,
topic? Okay, we'll move on then to the Urban Services Framework Project.
Our friends down the road, as Tanya said it.
Good afternoon, Chair Harrington and members of the board. My name is Erin Wardell. I'm the Assistant Director of the Department of Land Use and Transportation. With me are two of our consultant partners on this project. Would you two like to introduce yourselves for the record?
Sure. My name is Becky Hewitt. I'm a project director with Echo Northwest. We're the prime consultants on the project.
Good afternoon. My name is James Kim, project manager with Echo Northwest.
We're very happy to share this with you this afternoon. The purpose of our briefing is to give you an update on the Urban Services Framework Project, which has only kicked off in the last couple of months, so we're still very early in the process. At the end of our presentation, we're going to come back and ask you if there is any additional technical information that you would like to see as a part of this project, and if you have any feedback on our project scope of work. For our presentation today, I am going to cover introductions of our project team and background of this work. I'll then hand it over to our consultant team and they will walk through the project goals and approach, walk through elements of our project scope, the timeline and communications, and then again, we will be circling back to questions at that time. So I want to start with project team introductions. This project is a collaborative initiative led by Washington County's Department of Land Use and Transportation in partnership with the cities of Beaverton and Tigard. The goal of this project is to address the complex challenges of providing urban services to the urban unincorporated areas of Washington County. Our project's fact-finding mission is being led by a consultant team led by Echo Northwest with support from JLA, Kimley Horn, and other technical experts. With our project grant funding, we were also able to hire 2 limited duration staff to help support this work, one of whom is in the room. Kimmy Aboshi-Sloop is a senior planner. She's our day-to-day project manager. We also have Francisca Elliott, who is one of our consultant support members from JLA Consulting. We are working closely with our internal subject matter experts, Teresa Cherniak and Michelle Miller as well, because I don't talk about UPAAs and USAs without consulting with Teresa and Michelle first. And so they are very much a part of this work too. And we're working really closely with Lee Crabtree, who's the Assistant Community Development Director for City of Beaverton, and Kimmy Zell, who is a policy analyst with the City of Tigard on this work. So we have a really robust and collaborative team working on this technical analysis.
Could you introduce me to, Kimley Horn? I'm familiar with Echo Northwest and JLA from other projects and work, but Kimley Horn is new to me.
They have a new presence in the Portland area. They're a national consulting firm, I believe, based out of the South. Back when I was a consultant, we did some work with Kimley Horn, and they specialize in transportation and infrastructure type work. So on our project, Kimley Horn is our asset management technical specialist, and so they'll be doing a lot of our infrastructure and asset management work.
Thank you.
Oh, and I think I forgot to mention Brett Radomski is our GIS analyst. This project, as you can imagine, involves a lot of GIS work and mapping and technical work. And so Brett will be doing that for us. So this project is an important issue for Washington County because the availability of urban services impacts the livability of our community. It's also a financial issue and it's an economic development issue with ongoing changes in our environment. And that includes our recent UGB expansions as well as growth inside our existing urban and incorporated area, as well as financial challenges. Now is an appropriate time to revisit questions about how we provide urban services, our asset conditions, governance, and stable funding as we move into the future. It's a good time to have these conversations because while this builds on many years of previous studies, many of our elected officials here at the county, as well as on our city councils, weren't in their positions back when this work was done previously. And so this is an opportunity for us to come together and make sure that we are all building off of the same knowledge base as we move forward. This work also builds on our county strategic plan update and our service level inventory. The project is a partnership between the county and the cities of Beaverton and Tigard. I will tell you that other cities in the county are really interested in this work and want to know why they're not involved in this or how they can be involved in this. So we've been having that conversation. We think that the findings that we develop here, again, it's building a base that we can build on. And so we will be continuing those conversations with our other cities as well and sharing this information with them. As a technical exercise, this project is intended to result in findings, and those findings can be used to inform future discussions and subsequent agreements and decisions that we may enter into. We'll be having conversations with our elected officials as well as with the leadership of our service districts as we move through this technical process. And then at the end of it, we'll be able to have those conversations about what these next steps should be, as well as what further conversations we want to have with our community. I want to call out, as far as building on our previous work, the Urbanization Forum from 2009 was a really important piece of work. It built on years of community engagement and collaboration between the cities, Metro, and our service providers. The work of the Urbanization Forum really resulted in an agreement that urban development should happen within cities. The outcomes of that have been implemented in the agreements that future UGB expansions would be managed by cities and not by the county. There's also language in the Urbanization Forum about doing this study for the existing urban areas, urban unincorporated areas, and thinking about how we continue to provide services to those areas and what they look like moving into the future. So that is what our future work coming out of this project could focus on. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Becky and James to cover the rest of the presentation.
Okay. So urban services, just to kind of level set a little bit, are a set of public services. They can be provided by county, city, or special district. They support communities' daily needs, but it's also kind of a term of art. It's defined in statute. There are a specific set of services that are considered urban services under statute. They're the ones with the cute little icons up here. And so that's not to say that these would not be provided at all in rural areas. They might be provided to some extent, but it might not be at the same level as an urban area. And it's also not to say that there aren't other services that a county or a city could provide. For example, Washington County is part of a partnership to provide the Washington County Cooperative Library Services for residents. So that is another example of a public service. It's just not statutorily defined as an urban service. We're focused on these ones that are on the slide. That's the set that we're focused on for this study. The urban unincorporated areas. This map shows all of Washington County. The green is rural. The brown is cities. The dark blue is the urban unincorporated area. So that's the geography that we're focused on for this study. It's within the urban growth boundary, but not within anybody's city limits. If you add up all the people that live in that blue area, it's about 215,000.
if all those people were to live in a single city together, they, which they don't, and may not ever, they would be hypothetically the second largest city in Oregon and more than twice as big as any other city in Washington County. So just to give you a sense of scale, it's roughly a third of the county's residents in total.
Which is why we don't position it that way.
And it's the largest urban unincorporated community in Oregon.
Which I think that statistic about what is in urban unincorporated, you're 250,000, whenever I communicate that out in my district to other cities or organizations in Tillamook or Clatsop or whatever, that's a surprise to them that we would have. They just think we're either rural or everybody's in a city. And so that's a surprising statistic.
And you said that it was the largest number in any county in Oregon.
For urban unincorporated.
Mhm.
Yes.
Clackamas County, I think, is about 130,000 urban unincorporated, which is still pretty large for an urban unincorporated area, but it's about half the size of Washington counties, population-wise.
So many of the urban unincorporated areas in Washington County have been that way for quite some time. The county has allowed urban levels of development without annexing to a city or incorporating as far back as the 1940s, which is several decades before Oregon land use laws went into effect. And so now we have rules about urban growth boundaries, and so that applies today, but because many of these predate that, the services in these areas have evolved over time. In the 50s and 60s, developers often provided their own services or formed small utility districts. But now the services for these areas have been transferred to counties or to special service districts. Today, Washington County still provides land use planning and permitting, development permitting for the unincorporated areas, but it does so in coordination with the cities. The county policy still does not require land to be annexed to a city before providing services or before development occurs, although cities would generally require annexation if city services are needed. If they don't need city services, they're not required to annex in order to develop. The county has seen substantial growth, but the property taxes and other revenues have not necessarily kept up due to measures 5 and 50 and limitations on property tax growth, which has made it harder for the county to maintain those services in the urban unincorporated areas. Also, there's been some state legislation over the last several years, and much of it asks Washington County to act in the role that a city would play in terms of planning for the urban unincorporated areas and applying some of those state expectations about land use and housing to these urban unincorporated areas, which is creates additional pressure on the county. So today, the urban unincorporated areas are served by a mix of county and special service districts. That's covered through some intergovernmental agreements that we'll talk about more in a minute. In some cases, the level of service the urban unincorporated area is the same as what would be provided within a city. So for example, Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue provides services throughout Beaverton and Tigard and the unincorporated areas. So everyone who lives in those areas gets the same level of service from Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, whether or not they live in a city. There are other situations where there are different service providers provide services at different levels. But people may not know whether they live in an urban unincorporated area or a city. Their mailing address may say a city. They may not know when they're crossing the line, and so they may not really know who's providing their services. So that can just create some confusion for community members.
Yeah, not only that, but they expect to be given city services when they're in unincorporated.
Certainly can happen. So in terms of how the county shares responsibilities for these urban unincorporated areas, you heard Erin throw around a couple acronyms earlier. I'm going to unpack those just a little bit for anybody who doesn't already know what they are. There are two types of agreements that lay out kind of who does what and what the responsibilities and roles are. Urban planning area agreements are established between the county and each of the cities. And they outline which areas they plan for together, how planning and development gets coordinated within those areas, and that helps provide some consistency and predictability for the property owners that live in those areas and align the different governmental activities as the community grows. The urban service area agreements, as you might guess from the name, are about the services being provided, and they can be between the county and cities or special districts or even metro, define who does what in terms of providing services. So for example, Washington County has agreements with Tigard and Hillsborough and King City. Tigard's was last updated in 2009. The one with Beaverton has actually expired at this point. But they set out the current responsibilities of who does what, and then how those responsibilities would change in the case of a boundary adjustment, but they don't say anything about when a boundary change would happen. So the urban planning areas, and hopefully the colors are visible for folks. This map shows which areas are covered by planning agreements with which cities. So for example, Beaverton is in light blue, and all of the brighter blue areas around it are Beaverton's urban planning area. So that's an area that the county and city of Beaverton collaboratively plan for. Tigard's are shown in the kind of reddish pinkish, Tigard in the light pink, and then the reddish pinkish areas are Tigard's urban planning area. And I'm going to pass it to James to talk more about our project scope.
Can you just comment on North Plains' color there? Is that actually indicating Beaverton, or is that just a detail that?
There are only 4 colors on the map, so some of them are repeated. So okay. Beaverton and North Plains and Tualatin are all shown in blue.
Okay, but they're not.
Not actually the same.
I'm tracking now.
Yeah. Yeah, we're showing all the cities on this slide and the areas that are covered, but the study's focusing on Beaverton and Tigard.
That'd be a significant cherry stem.
Could I ask you a question about the slide right here? The color coding that you just did around identifying the light blue to be the Beaverton and then the darkish blue to be all in Beaverton and vice versa for the green and light green for Hillsborough. When was that decided? Does that dates back to 1940s that you mentioned, or is it the 1970s? Like when was this color coding happen?
It depends on the city. And so we've worked individually with each city on their urban planning area agreement. And so as a part of those discussions, we talk about which areas of the urban unincorporated area would eventually become a part of that city, may eventually become a part of that city. And so those areas that show up are all negotiated as a part of those agreements.
So the Beaverton agreement that expired, that was just mentioned, that one, is it fair to say in that agreement is when this was decided?
The Beaverton agreement that expired is actually the urban service agreement, not the urban planning area agreement. So the urban planning area agreement with Beaverton was updated in, I believe, 2017 or 18. And then I think Tigard's was done in 21 or 22. So they're relatively recent. I may be off by a year on either of those. So, but they're relatively recent agreements. And we had a lot of conversations with both cities as a part of making these maps and updating the agreements.
Will that come in as part of this project? Will that come in front of us to the urban planning area agreements as well as the urban service agreements?
I think that there could be an opportunity coming out of the study to make some updates to those agreements and lay out roles and responsibilities, but we won't know that yet until we see the findings from the study and have those conversations with the elected bodies. So it would be under the direction of the elected bodies to make those updates to those agreements. But cities or the county can at any time request an update to the agreements, and then we would begin a conversation about it.
Okay. Thank you.
So that was the background, and I'm going to go a little bit more into the study that we're doing. So with the context of the urban unincorporated areas in mind, its history and its challenges, the county is working with the cities of Beaverton and Tigard to go on this fact-finding mission. As it was stated, it is a technical study, it's a technical exercise, and we'll be coming up with findings that can create a framework for future discussions and future decisions, if any, about how to provide urban services in these areas in the future. Because of the technical focus, while we're doing the study, we don't have a formal community engagement component as part of this. That is not to say that it's not important. We hope that the findings of the study can be a basis for future engagement. The study will help you, the cities, arrive at a common set of findings and understanding in order to explore the next steps, the options, and their impacts. As listed in the middle section of this slide, we're going to be looking and documenting, as listed in the bottom section of the slide, we're going to be looking and documenting the fiscal impacts, the service impacts. We're going to create a common understanding using case studies as real world examples. And we're going to look at 3 different categories of scenarios, which I'll get into in just a bit. Here's an overview, and I'm going to go into each one of these 3 categories, identified with the 3 icons. Here through the study, we're going to be asking questions like, what services are provided? What is the current funding structure, funding model? Are there backlogs and unmet community needs? And after evaluating the existing assets, we'll do an economic and fiscal feasibility study, looking at potential solutions to stabilize funding while providing effective and efficient services. So in relation to existing assets, these are the types of questions we could ask. It's really about doing a technical analysis that compiles information about existing infrastructure and their conditions. Asking questions like these and finding out responsibilities for operations and maintenance, about costs, really getting a lay of the land.
So on this slide, existing assets, I'm assuming that the gauge that will be used to evaluate the existing assets in the UUAs will be a common methodology that Beaverton and Tigard also use for examining their own assets. Otherwise, we're going to end up with fruits and vegetables and meat.
Yes, I think that is important to consider. Also, as mentioned, Tigard and Beaverton are partners in this. We're also thinking about other parts of urban and unincorporated areas. So thinking about common sets of metrics will be important for application of the finding.
So for an example, something like pavement condition index is a standard measure. And so we would be looking at the county's target for pavement condition index conditions, as well as what the city's targets are for that. And that's a common measure that we can use for road surfaces.
So I've gotten confirmation here that we will be comparing absolutes.
As much as we can, yes.
Okay.
I mean, the concept that the chair is raising the issue that there needs to be agreement among the parties involved. We're one party, but there are others, right? I mean, I hope we don't get in a situation, to the chair's point, where there's all of a sudden at the end of all the work, a disagreement about, what metrics should be used or how they're administered. That will make this a lot less useful.
We agree.
Thank you.
I have a question. This might be semantics for me, but I thought I heard you say urban services were going to also look into services that are provided to urban residents. But here it just talks about the infrastructure. Are you going to look what services they receive that isn't just the infrastructure as well, or?
Yes, that's correct. These are example list of questions. Infrastructure we can think of as water and pipes. Services including Sheriff's Patrol District or
Right.
park
That's
services.
a good example.
Or urban planning.
Urban
Yeah.
planning.
Yeah, that's a good example, like the enhanced patrol sheriff as well as the city police. Okay, thank you.
One of the other questions is looking at the cost was the one-time cost that might be needed and the ongoing maintenance costs. And we'll be comparing those costs, the infrastructure and service costs, against the revenue side of the equation. Here on the slide, we have a list of taxes and fees we could be looking at. But looking for what do these look like, the cost and revenues today, and what could it look like in the future in a baseline scenario versus a different scenario. We'll also be wrestling with these policy and legal questions related to the urban service scenarios. We could look at what it would take to implement any changes to the service provision, whether the changes align with existing plans or existing agreements, or whether the agreements would require updates, and how state land use laws impacting the county and the cities within it are could impact the scenarios that we analyze. A specific element of this will be summarizing the requirements for incorporation of a new city. It is not our assumption or a base case that incorporation is something that is suitable or applicable to case study areas that we'll look at. But we do plan to use Aloha as an example to demonstrate the steps required for any place to become a new city.
Oh, so you mean using an area like Aloha? Because looking at this, Aloha tried to do this 50 years ago. So comparing present to 50 years ago just doesn't make any sense at all. So you're just talking about using an area.
They could have picked anyone, but that's
I don't use any area, just summary of the process. I mean, that isn't the goal of any of this anyway, but I think just noting what by state regulation the process is what we need. But the minute you go to any area, the whole project's going to deep six. It's going to be the welcome map to get everybody's hackles up. Ah, you're doing this, blah, 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 blah. The word example is never going to even be heard.
Thank you for the feedback. We want to lay out the normal process. What does it look like? I mentioned case study areas besides looking at Aloha, or besides laying out a potential path for incorporation for any areas. For looking at the costs and the revenues, the infrastructure and the services I mentioned, we could theoretically look at what it looks like in every unincorporated area. It is too time consuming. It is not feasible. So we decided to narrow down a list of case study areas to make those considerations.
I would advocate for taking Bethany off of the list. Been there, done that multiple times in the last 18 years. And it's not going to do us any good to revisit that.
The case study areas were selected in collaboration with the cities. And so the city of Beaverton selected Bethany, Cedar Hills West, and Garden Home as the areas they'd like to study based on the fact that they had done a previous technical analysis and they wanted to get updated information for those areas. The areas do have different typologies, and there's some reasons why they were interested in that. The county then asked to include Raleigh Hills as well, because that's of interest to us, especially with our upcoming boundary adoption as required for that area.
I guess I would have an easier time if you label this technical case area.
Yes, that's what they're intended to be. So we can do that.
I never imagined that this would get into incorporation steps. So that's why that part from the previous slide just took me off at the left field.
And James
reminded me of the battles I've already lived through on Bethany 3 times.
James is going to talk a little bit more about the scenarios on the next slide and what we're going to be doing as a part of that. The incorporation is really falling under that policy and legal analysis that we have to do as a part of this. It is a question that comes up pretty regularly from our community, and so we think it's important to answer the question for them, and that's why that's in there. But you'll note Aloha is not one of the technical case study areas. And so these were chosen because they have different types of urban form, different age of infrastructure, different types of redevelopment potential. And to your question, yes, Tigard selected those two.
Well, I just wondered, Tigard was in agreement with. Okay.
That's all true. And these are the 6 case study areas. We'll be going into the complexities of their revenues, costs, services, And the case study areas will be used to produce findings. We think the findings we can use to create a framework for application to other parts of the unincorporated area. So the scenarios that we'll be looking in that, the types of questions we'll be trying to answer for those 6 case study areas are these. What could happen to the service levels? Could this be a sustainable option? Whoever is responsible for the operations and maintenance. How could this impact residents and businesses? And to answer those questions, we could think about 3 types of scenarios. One is status quo. No changes to existing service provider boundaries or the funding funding sources. Second option is a boundary change, adjusting who provides those services. A third scenario we could consider is an alternate funding. So without changing the boundaries, but exploring other options like enhanced or new funding tools or service districts. While this framing of 3 scenarios or 3 types of scenarios is what's guiding us, we think there could be possibility that there's some combinations. So maybe a slight change to boundaries with maybe a change to the funding source, but that is something that we'll look at if it makes sense. But for the beginning, we are looking at these 3 as our guiding posts.
I have a question on your second key question. It is the only one that's a closed question, but more importantly, could this be a sustainable option? How do you define what a sustainable option is?
The main look for us is the fiscal sustainability. Is it sustainable?
So is this a fiscally sustainable option? And how do you explain that to a resident? Fiscally sustainable as characterized by what? That
I don't think there's
assets, what we're going to have to.
I don't think there's a single absolute answer of like, if the math works out precisely this way, we would consider it fiscally sustainable. But I think it would be sort of in comparison, right? The part of the reason to have these scenarios to be able to compare them amongst each other, to say what are the trade-offs of this versus the status quo? What happens if we don't change anything? Would service levels, would it be sustainable? Would service levels stay as they are, or would they have to change? And so I think
So I don't disagree with any of that. But then the key question isn't, could this be a sustainable option? Rather, how is this a sustainable option?
or
In
another
what
way of
ways
framing
is it
it.
a sustainable
Sure.
option?
How would the
Or
what would the fiscal implications be? How would it affect the ability to pay for services? How would it affect the service providers and the revenues that they would receive compared to the costs that it would take to serve?
Maybe even under what conditions would it be financially sustainable?
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Helped a lot. Thank you.
So just wanted to close with kind of a look ahead at our schedule and then sort of how communications is expected to happen for this project. So our timeline, this spring, we're in the process of gathering data. From now through the fall, we'll be doing the analysis that James described. And then in that kind of from fall through spring, having some internal review, developing, ways to summarize and communicate this out, because it is very technical and it does matter how you talk about it. So we'll be kind of going through the process of reviewing and refining the findings. And then we will be bringing findings out to the county and to the 2 cities, Beaverton and Tigard, for review in about a year, in spring and summer 2026, with a final report due in summer of 2026. And in the interim, there's certainly opportunities for briefings and updates, but this gives us some time to work through the technical analysis and really understand what all of the trade-offs are of those different scenarios and to make sure that we're communicating them clearly. On the point of communications, Erin mentioned this before, but it is a technical exercise, so it's not something that's going to have big public open houses and things like that. But with that said, staff can provide briefings to kind of keep the different elected bodies up to date. It's, you know, a year between now and findings is a long time to wait. So staff can help kind of fill you in as we go. Staff can also help provide presentations to community groups if there are questions, using some of the same information that we're sharing with you with some possible clarifications as you folks have suggested. So we'll be back for a work session in summer of 2026. And then from there, depending on where the elected bodies want to take things, there could be desire or need for additional community engagement, but it really depends on where you all decide to take it once you receive the findings.
Is the plan on the sort of sharing the results with elected officials? Is it thought that we would have like joint county commission and city council meetings, or would each elected body get a report out separately?
I think we were envisioning that it would be separate. However, if as we go along the process and have contact with the elected bodies, if that is something that there's interest in, it's something we could explore.
I don't have a strong preference. I just wondered what was envisioned.
I think with that, we're over to questions and discussion for you folks.
Right. Could you go back to this project timeline?
Yes.
Because in your project communications, you reinforce technical exercise. So spring, fall, there's a lot of technical work done. But you also say staff available if elected officials want briefings to share progress. But I mean, how do we have any sense for that whole big block, what progress is?
It really is a long timeline, and we've reflected on that after we put these slides together. This is reflecting what we have our consultant scope to do, but staff are available to do interim work sessions or briefings with you. And so we've already made a note that we should go back and flesh that out a little bit so that you're assured that you're getting regular updates.
Well, and I'm more concerned about, if you go to the next slide, the third bullet, staff available for presentations to community groups. That is an invitation for fostering a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and for us to just take heed for something that is very much a work in progress. So that's really what I'm skeptical about with this just very high level sketch at this point. I want you all, the team, the county team, the two cities team, and the consultants to be able to do the analysis as you've described, but ensure that we have a view of how you're going about that, just so that we're on the journey. You know, it may be that we have to wait for the full meal deal to really understand the comprehensive nature of the examination that you're doing, right? And it's all a technical analysis, and we do want to be informed by that. But I don't know. I mean, there are different ways to thread needles through things, and I'm more than happy to wait. As long as everybody's waiting in the same way, right? So that's all.
So let me jump in. So your question and curiosity really brings to light the conversation staff have had, and like, how do we manage expectations? This is technical work, and one could jump to a conclusion. So I want to kind of walk you through how we're even working through communications from I'm just going to highlight the 3 jurisdictions too. So the timing of council meetings, commission meetings, we're making sure those are within 1 to 2 week window. When we're sharing information with you all, staff at our partner cities are sharing information with their council. So we're trying to manage it from from that standpoint. We can go back to the group because, to your point, the community um, hindsight and experiences different community members have had with this comes with a degree of assumptions entering this conversation. So that's what I hear, kind of really being thoughtful about how we share this information and when, and we'll take that back to the group and we'll flush out, as Ms. Wardell said, just the timeline and any type of info that is shared with community for information and or presentations to any type of group before actually engaging in that work. So we'll come back to your board and we'll come back to our partners to make sure that they can follow up with their respective councils as well.
It seems like the spirit of this is to be open and available. But
Yes.
I think, as the chair is pointing out, this is a sensitive topic on some level and highly technical on another level, and that just creates sort of a complicated situation.
Just like under future engagement work session with review technical findings. You know, we just have to keep reinforcing where we're at. And I'm fine with this being the high level project scoping as we know today. Not a problem at all. It helps lay it out for us and we're on the same page. Thank you.
And I think that's where we're at with this point, to your point about being open and transparent. This is a public work session. We already know that community members are interested in the work we're doing. They've been asking questions. And so we're trying to walk that line of we want to be able to share that we're doing the study and share this highly technical, high level information if we're requested to do that. There's also a nuance there that, again, our consultants aren't scoped to do that. So if we were invited to go to a particular group and give a presentation, it would be staff who would be doing that, not our consulting team. And we would keep it at the same level as, to the point of our county administrator, anything that's been shared with the board, but nothing new. So we wouldn't be giving new information at that time.
I think even before attending community meetings, that type of thing, is having a communication plan and just a backdrop of why we're doing this in case there are questions from the community that wouldn't necessarily evolve into a community meeting, but just explanation of why and what we're trying to understand.
Thank you.
Those were all the questions I had. Other commissioners, questions or
Mine
comments?
during the presentation. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Good project. I'm really looking forward to the technical finding. As someone who lives in the urban unincorporated areas of Washington County, I look forward to being on this journey with you. Look forward to it. Thank you.
And I just want to make one final note for our community members who may be watching. There was a typo in my email address in an earlier version. So if someone was wanting more information and they saw an earlier version, there was an extra period in there. And so I just want to say that publicly so people hear. I know you all know how to get in touch with me if you have a question, but someone watching this may not. So this is the correct email address.
We're still, just so I'm clear, we're still going to get the answer to the question about what it sort of the process and it takes to create a new city, but it's not going to be modeled off of, I mean, from the suggestion that you're either going to make a fictitious one that doesn't have anything to do with Washington County or but we're still going to get that information, correct?
The process of incorporation will be included, but it will not highlight any specific area of unincorporated Washington County.
My only concern about the handout, the simple, was the word technical isn't reflected. And I think that would be useful.
Okay.
So on the backside, a technical analysis of urban services. And in the second paragraph, the project technical findings.
We can certainly do that.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being our technical partners in this expansive look. It's a big area.
It's an exciting project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this juncture, we're going to take a 15-minute break, so we will reconvene at 3 o'clock. Thank you.
All right. Welcome back, Commissioners, and
understand.
back to you, Chair Harrington.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. We are back from our break and we will move to board and leadership communication and formal agenda item discussion. Why don't we do the formal agenda item part first? So we had a couple of additions to our consent agenda. So there are 9 items on our consent agenda. We have 1 board and commissions. We have 2 proclamations, 1 action item. We do the Washington County Civic Leaders class is coming in tonight to testify. I now seeing their program set up, I now understand why when they've testified in the past, it's been on topics that don't have much relation to our service suite because they don't get their training on our service suite for a few more weeks. So I'm not sure what kind of testimony we'll get tonight. So it may involve some translation. Yep. So each of the individuals is has gotten information that for the first public comment period, we've got limited to 2 minutes. Their translation may take 2 minutes as well. And so we may end up with a list of folks that exceeds the 5 speakers, 30 minutes. So have to move some people to the end. So that is.
And you also, we need to be there 15 minutes early as well. Did I see a note about
You
that?
can do that. I'm not
Okay.
because meeting with them already is eating into my limited half-hour dinner. And I would really like to have the opportunity to warm up my dinner and eat it less than cold. So
I don't have any changes to the agenda.
or any questions?
No.
No.
Okay, great. Then we'll move on to board and leadership communication. Who would like to go first?
I made everybody go out before me last time, so it's
Well, go
really
for it.
my
then.
turn to go first. Last week, I attended the budget forum for Metro's Waste Prevention and Environmental Services. I'm doing some debriefing with Aaron Stein on those issues and also in coordination with RWAC. So I'm pulling all that information together.
Are there issues or is it
I
just?
think we're going to be
other-
talking about tipping fees and some of those things. So
Okay.
there's some increases that we need to be, I'm going to be working with Aaron to make sure I understand everything before I'm back and talk. So
Related to that, did the Metro Council ever finish their project on additional waste facilities throughout the region? And is that incorporated into this?
yes, it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You mean, and which goes back to that original conference that we attended
Yeah,
way back when, 2 years ago. Yes.
okay.
I'm doing the TVF in our community academy, so I got outfitted in all of my firefighting gear, which was interesting. So, and then I did attend the City of Sherwood State of the City address. That was good. Last Thursday, I spent the afternoon at the Westside Economic Alliance annual policy conference, which was focused mostly on economic development, economic growth, strength in that arena. Matt Craigie was one of the presenters there, so it was good to see him. On Friday, I picked up my clean water services budget, and I did have some past due check-ins with Maida and others. So that was necessary. Yesterday, I spent most of the time reviewing the CWS budget, beginning to review the CWS budget, but I did take a break and I had lunch with Clackamas County Commissioner Ben West, more relationship building, just talking about things in general, but also listening to his perspective on SHS. This morning, I stopped by the
How do you
port.
characterize that?
Interesting.
Oh,
I
I
think
wanted to ask the same question, but didn't.
I stepped into it. I leaned into the opportunity.
I think what I really appreciate about Ben is that he's bringing forward kind of a health provider piece as well as homelessness piece. He talks about the recovery hub. He talks about some other pieces that he's interested in, but he also looks very holistically at the problem and thinks holistically about the problem in relationship to the resources. So I think that's fair, and he's straightforward. He's honest about where his criticisms are with the all the counties and how we are managing things.
So Clackamas County has not been sending an elected official to the SHS Oversight Committee or to TCPB.
I didn't know that. I will remind him of that. So this morning, on a whole different note, I stopped by the Portland Thorns in Portland WNB a performance center groundbreaking ceremony. So right out here, it's a big center that's opening up, and Senator Wyden was there, Congresswoman Bonamici, the governor was there. It's a big deal because this area is really becoming the epicenter for women's sports, and that's a key piece to the messaging that they're giving with the Portland Thorns, WNBA, and with that was my background, and it's really important to me to see kind of the Title IX came in 1972, and the effects of Title IX, we have seen throughout the ages, and it's powerful to see it there. So that was a very uplifting event.
Is that the one on Evergreen and whatever? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've driven by there several times, and I can't figure out which building that is.
I'm not sure I know either after I was there.
The
So
post,
the groundbreaking was outside.
the post office is on the north side. I thought,
It's up it's on the south side.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Isn't it the old Norm Thompson campus? Yeah.
So, and tomorrow morning I'm going to be attending the Tualatin State of the City address. And Thursday is our board lobby day. I've been working with Maida and Aaron Stein again we've got the RWAC meeting, but I believe we're going to have enough coverage at the RWAC meeting so I can attend the full lobby day as well. So working to balance those pieces and make sure that we are represented. Then also MPAC is this week. I did an update with Jessica and Teresa Cherniak. Sorry. And there is no vote. I'm done.
You made it.
That was pretty good.
See what happens when you go first.
So who's next?
I'll go next. So continuing with the SHS discussion, of course, the chair and I have been meeting with staff and then attending the president's work group. And I guess my takeaway yesterday was I felt like the group is trying to solve world peace. They are all over creation about the services that we should be providing and how about we connect all the dots and everything else. And I keep saying, we're spending $400 million a year and we can't get anywhere close to that. So I don't know what that is, but that's continuing to be my mantra. I also weighed in on their term audit. They want services audited, and I keep saying an audit is not what we're looking at. So finally they're hearing that from others as well. It's a performance evaluation. Is that what we finally decided on or something?
System analysis.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, we continue.
And I agree with him 100%.
World peace.
It is world peace.
How often do you hear that?
We're not only going to take them, listening to this, we're not only going to try and take them off the streets and provide shelter and then stable housing and those kinds of things, but then connect them to doctors and dentists and mental health facilities, and all of that is in the connectivity of things. And I completely agree. It's great, but let's start with getting them off the street and we'll move on. But anyway, that's just my 2 bits. Attended the CPO meeting 13, CPO 13 in Banks last week. Again, a total of 5 people who was there, including one sheriff's deputy. And so it was a casual conversation. We had about a variety of things, including the what's the event, the dog training event that's coming up?
Canine
Yeah, canine
trials.
training. That they were very interested in that, so I told them that was a great event. They should be getting that on their calendar. Saturday, we had a hike, a 1 mile hike on the Salmonberry Trail Learning Mile. It's very interesting because in just 1 mile, we go through basically 3 different kind of weather events out there. Plus, we end up on just short of a trestle, and then we go underneath the trestle to a creek that a couple weeks ago they saw salmon spawning in the creek. So it's pretty cool. It's a very educational thing. They talked about there's lots of what the heck things that you build underneath the road. The water runs underneath them. Culvert. Thank you. Culverts that were built way back when that are made out of wood, and they actually last longer than the metal ones.
Really?
Yeah. We have over 300 of them in the Salmonberry Trail section. So anyway, there's just lots of history to this thing. It's just an amazing thing, and we're gonna continue to do those probably throughout the summer. So I will continue to invite you, and certainly hope that you can make some of those. We had over 30 people last week on that invited hike. So looking forward to Thursday. Going to be a busy Thursday in Salem. Coming back Thursday night for the volunteer appreciation event. And then, of course, in my spare time, studying the Clean Water Services budget. So there you go.
I can go. Last Tuesday evening, I attended the Sherwood City Council meeting. One thing came out of that I want to highlight, and that was just the Sherwood City Council was really pointing out the fact that it's going to be that they're going to need specific help with messaging if on the library levy the message is you're going to have to pay more and the services you're going to get are less, and they're concerned that will be a challenge. I think notes
Or
around
they
that
could
were-
pay even more.
yeah. So that was a discussion point I just wanted to point out. I think if that's where things end up, we need to think about that. So I just point that out. Last Wednesday, I attended the WA board meeting and then the Sherwood State of the City with Commissioner Treese was there as well. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I was at County College where we were talking about public health, mental health, addiction services, veteran services, and then also very interesting and I think important part when we're speaking are thinking about that around the history of the Oregon State Hospital, which has not only a storied history but a long history, and it helps kind of weave together how we ended up where we are now in the behavioral health space. So that was interesting. Yesterday had a one-on-one with the chair, 30-minute meeting with Metro President Peterson, and it's ironic what you just described about the meeting because I might have been critiquing something an hour or two before that meeting related to how there is not a clear, in the convening, it doesn't appear like there's clear agreed upon things that the group is working towards and that may be contributing to some of the difficulty. Yesterday, I also met with the Explore Tualatin Valley Executive Director for my onboarding to the board. He did remind me, and I want to remind all of you, you may have received this in the mail, that on May 8th, they're having a celebration of National Travel and Tourism Week event at the Cornelius Pass Roadhouse. So just a reminder on that. I also met last evening with the Housing Justice Group at St. Anthony Church, and I know there's been some history there. They want to invite, I think they're working on their advocacy, and they are going to a lobby day in Salem, and they wanted you all to be invited. So that is on Wednesday, May 21st, if you want to attend. Let's see, tomorrow morning, I'm also going to the Tualatin State of the City. 24th, obviously, we got Lobby Day and then the Volunteer Appreciation event. Is everybody going to, just so I know, everybody going to be at the Volunteer Appreciation? Okay. Um,
We should probably see if we can either take 5 cars to Salem and 5 cars back or carpool.
yeah, carpool makes sense.
What could you swing by and get me on?
Sounds super efficient. You must be a real logistics. On Friday, I'm going to be attending the Washington County Sheriff's Office presentation on their services. And then I think there's a tour of the jail, which I am not going to be staying for, but I have been in the jail a fair number of times as a reserve police officer. Dale, just so you got that.
We have an annual tour we're required to
Yeah,
take.
inspect it. Also Friday, we've got the local electeds tour of the courthouse. And then I did want to point out that on Thursday, on the 28th, which is the Monday, we have our budget session and the Tigard State of the City is at the exact same time. So I think we'll all be at the budget meeting, but I did want to just point that conflict out. So if anyone wants to send regards to Mayor Lube or the city of Tigard, I will try to do that as well. That's all I got.
I think I have already RSVP'd to that effect, and then there was another one that conflicted with our budget committees that I also replied to.
That's all I got.
Thank you. I'll go next, Chair. I too got the Clean Water Services budget. Diane, thank you. And I think everyone is going to read every word on the pages this year, especially. So
Did you get
more.
candy bar?
Yes, I did. Yes.
That came from Kathy.
Yeah. It's
Through
a
her own
must
donation.
tradition. Okay.
Hmm?
And then I will be attending the volunteer appreciation, and then as well as the Tualatin Sherwood, Tualatin breakfast. Sorry, not the Sherwood one. One thing I wanted to loop, I think I made a effort to do that last time, was to loop you all back in on some of the testimonies that I heard at JPAC. JPAC there was a testimony opportunity for the regional flexible fund allocation, step 1A and step 2, public testimony. And there were a lot of people that called in, about 9 or so, I think I counted, for Sunrise Corridor. So really Clackamas County sort of mobilized and brought community members, people who are previous electeds and community advocates to the table to testify. There are a lot of comments about Burnside, and as well as uh, Montgomery Park and other projects. But the great news, and I want to extend to congratulations to Adrian, Economic Development. She really brought in community members from Washington County to also come and testify and tell the story about what it means for Washington County and everyone who utilizes that corridor, what TB highway improvements mean. So kudos to Adrian for mobilizing the community and spoke, and people who spoke to TB Highway. One of the things that they demonstrate is our strength, which is the multicultural, multilinguistic residents that exist in our county, and people came and testified in their own language. So that was a really success in save the last for the save the best for the last. I meant to say that. In terms of other actions that we're taking, TV Highway, JPAC, no other action item was taken. I'm glad that today our board is taking the TV Highway locally preferred alternative, but that got bumped out because the testimony was significant and so many people called in. So we didn't have any time. So nothing board action related that I need to loop you in, but I just wanted to fulfill that promise that what we've heard at the public testimony for the REFA. And then, that's it. I think I said all the activities happening that I'm attending. And that concludes my update.
Great. I'll go next. Thank you, Commissioner Willie, for summarizing the Monday Metro President's Work Group meeting, because I was trying to figure out what I was going to say, and I reminded myself, oh, that's okay. Jerry will go first. So you'll be able to just ride his coattails. So that's why I say I'm in agreement with the level of describing an ideal system. And one of the ahas I had during the meeting is, oh, who knew we could have just ignored the homelessness crisis that was before us and just architect an ideal system and work towards implementing that versus getting people housed and saving lives these last 4 years. So, and previously during COVID with CRF funding. So yes, I've turned into quite a cynic through all of this, but more so I was really disappointed to hear the additional requests for time that they have before our next meeting and additional homework. And I just don't have the bandwidth.
Like they're wanting to push it out further?
No, they want us to spend more time
Oh,
attending, a couple more meetings in
Got it.
preparation and do more homework. And it's just no way. So very, very puzzling.
It's still going to be referred in November 2025.
That's all indications. They're planning on, there was a memo that I thought I sent to all of you, which was the last written update that I've seen that talked about the council getting briefings at different work sessions on the president's work group, and then picking back up in early June on the referral. So as far as I know, all systems are go on that. So sorry, I was going to segue into the next thing, and now I got sidetracked. So I've been working with CWS staff in setting up our work session day on April 9th and subsequent time slot May 6th, and scoping out moving forward on several fronts. Then I'm reading the CWS budget like you are, and as though we're not busy enough with our 2 agency budgets, as Clerk Moss has let us know, we have the Senate District 13 work coming up. So at this juncture, Clerk Moss, I'd like to turn it over to you and verbalize what you have sent out to the board.
Yes, thank you, Chair Harrington. Good afternoon, Commissioners. So what I sent you an email was the official notice we received from Secretary of State's office this morning that the 30-day clock started as of when Senator Woods passed on April 19th. So the whole process has to be wrapped up by May 19th. The notice to the State Democratic Party gives them until May 9th to hold a meeting to submit 3 to 5 names to commissioners to your board, Yamhill and Clackamas County. We received update. The State Democratic Party is going to hold their meeting on Sunday, May 4th, which makes our timeline a little bit easier, more flexible, working around your budgets. This morning, I submitted to Yamhill and Clackamas County 4 possible dates that I shared with you of May 7th, May 13th, 16th, and 19th, and are awaiting to hear back from them if though any of those work for them, so we can set the date and then we can work on sending them over the agenda that we've used in prior appointment processes. Just go the same process we have, so no need to reinvent the wheel. But the motion is moving forward. I have good point of contacts for Yamhill and Clackamas County, so I'm just waiting for them to get back to me on that. And for the weighted totals, as I put in your email yesterday, I was only slightly off with the numbers that we have 79,000 registered voters, 19,000 Clackamas, and just under 1,000 Yamhill. So it's truly at the direction of this board of who the next senator will be, with our 15.8 votes per commissioner. Clackamas just has 4 votes per commissioner, but the interesting note on that, because they do not have a 5th member currently, that other 4 votes is out. So they would only have a total of 16 votes, not the 20 as described in the document. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
So,
That doesn't get diluted further?
Mhm.
Interesting.
no. So we only get our full vote if all 5 of us show up and participate in the voting. So thank you for doing all that assessment and corralling work.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it. And lastly, I am having a heck of a time working with the CWS devices. So I may end up returning my Mac, so I don't do it harm. Drop kick to mind. So yeah, I am not an iPhone user either. So Apple, it has done nothing but frustrate the heck out of me. So I'm a loving 40-year user of Intel, Microsoft PC products, and a, let's see, 30, almost 35-year user of laptops. So having a tough time with this Apple experience. So some of my emails are a little more creative than usual. As in, I don't have the mail thread that I would like to have. So we'll just stay tuned and see what I can do. I find myself reverting to the browser use. So pretty ineffective right now. Anyway, I got too long-winded there. Leadership communication. Who would like to go first? Which agency?
I can go.
Go for it, Washington County.
This moving. So I want to highlight a couple emails that were sent to your board and just lift them to light. As for Mr. Bransford's email to your board outlined yesterday, we are looking forward to supporting 2 budget-related events for your board on Monday, May 12th. For the first is an all-virtual information session for elected officials, which will convene from 5 to 6:30. Then the board hosted community town hall will be offered in person and by Zoom from 7 to 8:30. The public services building auditorium will be used for both of these events. Email invitations to the electeds information session will be sent later that day, and a media release and social media content about the community town hall will be sent tomorrow morning. I will note that Monday evening is the same evening of Tualatin City Council. I have been in contact with the Tualatin City Manager, and that's part of the reason we have the elected before the community. It will be dependent on Tualatin's work, if they can make time for that, and that'll be of course up to their discretion, but we did try to accommodate the various council meetings that we have within the county. Another Mr. Bransford email that was sent last week, and this is regarding levies and polling. Our polling firm, EMC Research, has recommended a change in the timing of our voting survey work. The new approach would mean 2 more rounds of polling would occur, one in early May as planned and a second in July. Both surveys would have a smaller sample size that would still give the board a high confidence level for the results. This new approach would mean that preliminary staff proposals, not final, for both levies would be considered by your board on May 27th. The ballot material would be tentatively approved on June 3rd. In a worst case scenario, the board would need to re-examine one or both levy rates just before adopting final versions of the revised rules and ballot material mid-August. So this recommendation is coming from EMC Research based on what they're seeing in their pollings, not just here recommending it here, but what they're seeing in voter sentiment with all of their clients right now.
And quickly, just a little underscore, really, as the effect of the national politics trickles down, that's really the major cause here. Wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, good reinforcement. Thank you.
Departments continue to track federal program reductions in the last week.
Speaking of which, see,
While this isn't directly impacting Washington County, it does impact our Washington County community and businesses. Last week, Small Business Administration Office in Portland, which serves Washington County, lost 6 of its 7 employees. This does mean resource partners meetings, which they extend to economic development staff, have been canceled indefinitely as of April 17th of 2025. Kind of coupled with that, I've had individual board members lift up if there's training that would be of interest to the board, please bring that to light. So this is not required. I'm just bringing something optional. Across our nation, we are continuing to witness an increase in intimidating behaviors and incivility. To counter this trend, and it is crucial that we continue to foster environments where we model respect, understanding, and collaboration so that we can all flourish in service to communities and within our workplaces. As we've been meeting today, the American Public Health Association, American Psychological Association, the International City County Management Association, and the National League of Cities came together and hosted a town hall on the impact of incivility to our public servants and also elected officials. This town hall was aired on C-SPAN, and I will get a video link and share that with your board. Once again, this is just optional if it's of interest. This week, I will be traveling to Colorado for the Colorado City County Management Association. During that time, I will be opening a keynote speaker meeting with the assistants managers group and talking about careers and career advancement, and also serving on a panel on ethics and talking about ethics in local government. As a reminder, ICMA pays for these costs, or I pay for these costs myself. And during this time, Andover, I'm forgetting which one of the ACAs was going to be serving as acting during my absence, and I will email this information to the board as well.
can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Or what I'm trying to get to is posing an idea. So I was thinking about the federal changes, and well, I'll just speak for myself. From one day to the next, 1 week to the next, it just feels like there's a lot of ad hoc change, which reminds me of the conversation we were having earlier about the quarterly reports. And I am having a difficult time with ad hoc changes versus saying, okay, let's decide, take a view. Yes, I know we have to make changes. We'll be doing a lot of that with our budget, but let's decide what we want to continue doing, can continue doing, and just make sure that we're taking full conscious stock of what will change. So as I was reflecting on all of that, I was thinking about how we have the budget approval in late May, then we have our June 12th roundtable, and then we're going to have an August roundtable. And I think those two will help me at least have a pretty, 1, 2, 3 step process of being really mindful and understanding of what the next fiscal year, how we've set ourselves up for the next fiscal year and the changes that we'll be going through as an agency in our service suite and what we're consciously hoping to do through the next fiscal year and beyond. Just the level of uncertainty, but change and being mindful about what we can do and what we can control. So,
Yeah, and as a reminder, your proposed budget will be delivered based on what we know now. And if there is a change that we feel confident in between the time of that delivery and the budget committee and board deliberation, that will be a budget amendment staff will bring forward. I will say I appreciate you, Chair, laying out those benchmarks of dates. It would be great if those are the dates we anchor to, but I'm and staff are, this is going to just be a degree of uncertainty. So staff are also working and grateful for the funding through ARPA to have our first centralized grant coordinator of determine how do we keep track of some of these impacts? So by all means, when I'm sharing this out during leadership updates, I'm not expecting the board to track this. I don't want to also at the same time be their surprises with what you may hear in the media or what may be community chattered. But we are starting to see or hear more of the potential impacts that are coming in that I think the departments who could be impacted, and I want to underscore could, first would be HHS and housing.
so I recall that once President Trump was inaugurated in his first week or so, on the various executive orders he was signing there and pausing grant funding or pausing distribution of funding. As we go through the budget presentation, will we end up with a view of what federal funding has any sort of clarity, like this stuff has been ceased, this stuff is still in stasis mode because who knows what, lawsuits, or there's nobody picking up the phone versus we just don't know.
Or things they're still paying the bills for. I mean,
Yeah.
So
that will,
yes,
because
yes,
I know
we will make that
staff
clear.
has
Yes.
been convening on that, but I may have forgotten if there was a report out about status.
We will determine that, and I want to put one caveat in there. I think we need to also be reporting that out on what is ongoing operational funding versus what are like one-time grant funding, because those are two different categories for me. And I will say both are important, and it's the ongoing operating funding that has the highest concern from a continued sustainability of services. Yeah. And once again, not wanting to say the federal grants are important. They are.
Yep. Okay. All righty.
That concludes my update.
Stay tuned and learn more.
Chair Harrington, Board of Commissioners, I'm going to reserve my time for our next session. So
okay.
With you then.
Great. Clean Water Services.
Thank you, Chair and Board of Clean Water Services. So thank you for receiving our big budget notebook, and I appreciate, and the team appreciates you being able to go through that. The team will be collecting questions that the budget committee has, and they'll make sure that they answer the questions on a written Q&A for everybody. So that's the purpose of the meetings that they've set up. The chair will work on finding you some alternative devices or showing you how to turn that into, they call it conversations. So I can help with that for you to see if I can get your Outlook set up the way you like it. But I understand it. I'm used to HP calculators with reverse Polish notation. I can't use TI calculators, so I totally get where you're coming from, and we'll make sure you have the device that works for you. I really appreciate the chair working with us to set our Clean Water Services work sessions going forward. And Anne is working with each of the board members to set up our check-ins. Thank you. The team is really looking forward to the budget presentation on May 9th. So they really wanted to thank you for your review. The updates on the actions in compliance with the R&O. There's many actions that are taking place to institute the management and internal controls that are needed. So I'll provide you with an update on May 29th of everything that's been put in place, and reporting is going to be starting.
May 20.
Or April 29th.
Thank you.
Excuse me, April 29th. So things like the P cards have all been collected, and you'll know which ones had P cards, and all of the finance reporting is going on. And then
If there are things that you're doing even more aggressively than the RNO and more proactively, I would like to know those things on April 29th too.
that's great, and we're rapidly instituting things. And then on April 29th, my hope is to have a discussion with all of you about the plan to restore the public trust, so we can do it in an open session. I've heard individual comments, ideas, and I would like to talk about some thoughts that I have with all of you. So we've been meeting with teams internally. I have the Clean Water Services, the city managers would like to talk to me about the message that they sent so we can better understand the bullets. So we'll be conducting those. And I've been reading all of the community input and taking it to heart and seeing what it is that we need to do to provide communication for transparency and trust. So thank you. And the team's been doing a really good job following up with every single person that has communicated. I did share one letter that came to me, and you're aware of that. But thank you.
Alrighty. Anything else for today? Okay, so we have an executive session. So I need a motion to adjourn to executive session for Washington County pursuant to ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub H for the purposes of discussing potential litigation. So, all those in favor, please vote by raising your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. So we'll give everyone not involved the opportunity